Alright. So the first set is to copy and complete the table of values for the function case. This is one way we can graph parabolas, is just by making a table. So let's start with one of those. So y is equal to negative 3x squared. So we'll make an x and y table. They tell us what values to put in for x. Negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2. Okay, so you're literally just going to plug in the value and see what y is. So right. Nope, just the x. Okay, notice pattern here. So if you did 0 to start with, okay, then you have 0. Moving out, these line up. So negative 3 and negative 3. Moving out, these line up. Negative 12 and negative 12. We don't need to graph this one. This is just completing the table. Alright. The next one, say to graph and compare. I'm mainly worried about the graph portion, not so much the compare portion. Let's see, 8. So y is equal to 5x squared. Okay? Now, another thing that I didn't really mention, if you don't have a value, so like if you're missing your b value, you're missing your c value, you put a 0 in for it in like the formulas that you have. Okay? So, what is my formula for axis of symmetry? Nope, give me the formula. Minus b over 2a. So then, plugging in numbers, what do I have? Okay, which this is what? 0. So x is equal to 0. Well, that's the axis of symmetry. I'm not done yet. So what does that mean about my vertex? Okay, so the way we would find the rest of it, okay, we know the x part of it. Let's say that we actually had a number here that wasn't 0. You take this and you plug it in, okay, for x, and you solve for y. So in this case, it would be 5 times 0 squared, which is 0. So that's my y coordinate. So in this case, it's at the origin 0, 0 is my vertex. Also, make sure you circle this stuff so I know where I can see it, so I can find all your pieces easily when you do it. Okay, is this graph opening up or down? Up. Okay, it's positive. There's no, or let me rephrase. There's not a negative sign in front, so it's opening up. Okay, a is greater than 0. So now I'm going to graph it. Okay, so I'm going to put a few marks here. Okay, but actually, I can put my vertex on there. Okay, it says 0, 0. And I know my axis of symmetry is here, so when you're showing your axis of symmetry, because you have to show that on the graph, if it's on the origin, put a couple dots on it so I see where it is. Okay, or at least do this. so I can see where it is. Okay, now there's one other thing we need. I need to be able to find another point, okay, on the graph so that I can actually graph it. Because while this one is pretty much going to look like the parent function, I do have a 5 in front of it, meaning something's going to happen. So what point do you think would be a good one to pick since I can't use 0 since that's where my vertex is? I would just plug in x is equal to 1. Yeah, I said point. I should have said what, sorry, I should have said what coordinate, okay, what x value. I would always use the smallest, easiest value, okay, so if you can, use 1 or use 0. Not that those are always the easiest, but I would say like 9 times out of 10, that's what I would pick. So we're going to say when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 5 times 1 squared, so y is what? 5. So I have a point at 1, 5, so 1, and all the way up, I need to add another thing here. So 1, 5. Then I'm 1 from my axis of symmetry here, okay, from the origin, or from the axis of symmetry to this point is 1 away. So that means I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to go 1 back. And then I'm just going to connect my dots. Now, something to notice, this is not a point, like this is not coming to a point here, like this, okay, it's rounded, okay, it's like a U, okay, it's not a V, it's a U, okay, so make sure you round that off at the bottom when you do that, okay. The only thing you need to actually label on your graph is axis of symmetry. I'll know where your vertex is. Because the straight V is what? Do you guys remember? I don't know if you've seen it before. It's an absolute value graph. Okay? Now, just to go ahead and give you a little quick intro, this isn't part of this particular problem, but do I have a min or a max here? A min, and the min would be where? At 0. Okay, a min at x is equal to 0. So that's all you would have to do to show your min and max values. Okay? Basically, you're just looking at the vertex. If it opens up, you're going to have a min. If it opens down, you're going to have a max. Because it's the lowest point the graph can hit. The reason you can't have a max with one like this is because this goes up to infinity. This keeps going. But if it was flipped, then you'd have a max but no min. Now, some graphs have both, but not like parabolas. So, alright, let's do one more. Let's do 10. Do one more easy one, and then we'll get to the hard ones on Wednesday. Alright, y is equal to negative x squared. So, first and foremost, is this going to open up or down? That's what we really should ask first. Okay, this is going to open down. Okay, you don't have to write that on your paper, but last year a really common mistake was people not paying attention to that and then not realizing when they drew their graph that something was wrong because they had a negative in front and they had it opening up. Okay, so I would just say at least if you don't write it down, make a mental note when you start the problem is it's going to open up or down because that will eliminate some potential errors that you might end up having. Okay, so I want to know where my axis of symmetry is. So for this problem, where is it going to be? And you don't have to write the formula every time. I just wanted to write it on the last one to get used to it. Okay? It's going to be at x is equal to 0. Okay, because minus b over 2a, there's no b values, so that would be 0. And my vertex, if x is 0, what is y? 0, so vertex is at 0, 0. Okay, now if I want to find my other values here, okay, yeah, I can use a 1, okay, if I put 1 in, what do I get? If x is equal to 1, I'm trying to find my other point, if x is equal to 1, what is y? Negative 1. Okay? And that makes sense because it's opening down, so I need to have y values going down. Okay? So, alright, so axis of symmetry. Okay, I have a vertex at 0, 0. I'm going to put the rest of my lines on here. Okay, so my vertex is at 0, 0. I have another point at 1, negative 1. So come over to 1, go down 1. Okay, now I'm 1 away from my axis of symmetry on this side, so I'm going to be 1 away on the other side. So I'm going to go over to this side, and then I'm just going to graph it. Yep, and we have a max at x is equal to 0. Okay? Good? Easy one so far? Alright, so we'll get into ones that have b values or that don't have b values but have c values and stuff like that, because that will also affect the graph on Wednesday. So just be ready for that.